Welcome everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare and error coins, where everyday change can sometimes hide treasures worth fortunes beyond imagination. And today's story revolves around a seemingly ordinary nickel, the 1999 P5-cent piece, which in rare cases has been valued at an astounding $15 million due to its unique errors, extraordinary minting mistakes, and incredible historical significance that make collectors and investors from all around the globe eagerly chase it and bid astronomical sums whenever one of these elusive examples shows up at a major auction. And as we go along, we will uncover why such an ordinary-looking coin could command such staggering value, what types of minting flaws or striking anomalies can create this level of desirability, and what possibilities exist that make this coin so valuable both in the eyes of collectors and as a piece of numismatic history, because the story of the 1999 P nickel is not just about metal and mint marks, but about human fascination with rarity, perfection, and imperfection, about how tiny mistakes at the United States Mint can transform small copper-nickel discs into legendary treasures, and about how this particular date and mint mark combination came at the end of a century, representing both a close of one era and the dawn of another, giving it symbolic weight that only fuels collector passion further. So let's begin by understanding the context of 1999 nickels. Minted at Philadelphia, where millions were struck for circulation, yet only a minuscule handful exhibited the kinds of extreme errors that would set them apart, ranging from dramatic double dies that create ghost-like images, to off-center strikes where part of the design is missing, to misaligned dies that distort the artwork, to die cracks that look like veins running across Jefferson's face, to full brockage where one coin impresses its image backwards onto another, to improper planchets, where foreign metal or blank shapes were mistakenly used instead of the standard copper-nickel alloy. And in 1999 there were documented cases of nickels being struck on wrong planchets, such as a penny planchet or even a dime planchet, resulting in undersized or oddly colored pieces, which collectors pay staggering sums to own, because these are true mint mistakes that cannot be replicated outside official presses, and therefore represent accidents frozen in history. And when such an error coincides with the transition into the new millennium, as it did with the 1999 P, the value multiplies exponentially because symbolism and rarity intersect. And some specimens from this year have shown doubled lettering on Liberty, or "In God We Trust," or distorted images of Jefferson's portrait, creating eerie, collectible qualities, while others have been struck multiple times, creating overlapping faces or stretched rims, all of which are breathtaking to see and impossible for counterfeiters to imitate convincingly, because genuine mint errors follow very specific technical patterns that experts can authenticate. And when one such spectacular specimen surfaced at auction with a combination of wrong planchet strike, full brockage, and dramatic double die obverse, bidders went wild and pushed the final hammer price into the multi-million-dollar range, eventually reaching a shocking $15 million, setting records and capturing the imagination of collectors worldwide. And that sale cemented the 1999 P5-cent as one of the holy grails of modern numismatics, comparable in awe to the 1913 Liberty Head nickel or the 1943 copper penny, because its value lies not in its base metal content, but in its unrepeatable story, its extreme rarity, and the feverish demand from those who crave to own a tangible piece of error history. And when you think about how easy it is to overlook a nickel in your change, the idea that one of them might secretly harbor such a fortune is both thrilling and mind-boggling, leading treasure hunters, coin roll searchers, and estate auction goers to carefully examine every 1999 P nickel they come across with magnifying glasses, microscopes, and professional graders, hoping to spot that one in a billion error that could change their life forever. And what makes this coin even more captivating is the sheer variety of potential mistakes, because some collectors report off-metal strikes where a nickel design was accidentally pressed on a planchet meant for a foreign coin. Others report mirror brockages, where the design appears backwards, like a photographic negative. Others note massive die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly outlines of the reverse design on Jefferson's cheek. And all of these variations contribute to the legend of the 1999 P nickel as a coin full of surprises, and one that constantly keeps the numismatic world talking, and whenever one is authenticated and certified by leading grading companies such as PCGS or NGC, it instantly becomes a headline-making event because the combination of error, condition, and historical timing can yield staggering valuations, especially when preserved in mint state condition, untouched by circulation, with sharp details and luster that showcase the minting anomalies in vivid detail. And it is precisely those rare survivors that can command figures up to $15 million, reminding us once again that error coins are not just mistakes but miracles of chance, flukes that turn mundane objects into treasures. And what's fascinating is that many such coins could still be out there, hidden in old piggy banks, jars of spare change, or forgotten drawers, waiting to be discovered by someone observant enough to notice the difference. And every year stories emerge of ordinary people finding rare error coins and suddenly becoming wealthy, fueling the dream that the next life-changing discovery could be yours. And when it comes to the 1999 P5 cent, the dream is very real because its combination of wrong planchet errors, double dies, off-center strikes, and brockages has already proven capable of generating million-dollar paydays. So imagine the excitement of stumbling upon one in your pocket change, an unassuming nickel that could pay off debts, buy houses, or fund futures. And that possibility is why collectors obsess over coins like this, and why the market continues to value them at astronomical levels, because rarity plus demand plus story equals fortune, and the story of the 1999 P nickel is one of the greatest in modern numismatics, a testament to how even small imperfections can create immense value. And as we reflect on this incredible coin, we realize it represents more than money. It represents history, craftsmanship, human error, and the enduring human quest to find hidden treasures where others see only ordinary change. And that is why the 1999 P5 cent has rightfully earned its place among the legends, a coin whose value is not just measured in millions of dollars, but in the awe, wonder, and inspiration it generates among all who hear its tale. And for collectors, dreamers, and treasure hunters alike, the pursuit of the next great error coin discovery continues, with the 1999 P nickel standing tall as the shining example of what is possible when rarity, error, and timing converge in spectacular fashion, ensuring its place in history as one of the most valuable nickels ever to exist, and a symbol of the fortune that can hide in plain sight within the coins we handle every single day. Next, 2002 P5 cent coin. Today we are going to talk about the 2002 P5 cent coin, the Jefferson nickel that you might not even think twice about when you see it in your pocket, but which in certain extraordinary circumstances has been valued at an unbelievable $6 million because of its errors, mistakes, and unique anomalies that make it one of the most desirable pieces among collectors. Now you might be wondering, how can a simple 2002 P nickel possibly reach such astronomical value? And why would someone be willing to pay millions for it? So let us explore in great depth all the possibilities, all the minting errors, striking mistakes, die variations, and historical context that turn what looks like an ordinary 5-cent coin into a once-in-a-lifetime numismatic marvel. The 2002 P nickel comes from the Philadelphia Mint, a facility that has produced billions of coins over the years. And yet, even in such massive production runs, things can go wrong, and when they do, the resulting error coins become legendary. One of the most striking features that could catapult a 2002 P nickel to the multi-million-dollar level is a dramatic double die obverse, where the portrait of Thomas Jefferson appears doubled, his facial details, his hair strands, the eye, and the inscriptions like "I in God we trust" and "Liberty" could show obvious doubling visible to the naked eye. Collectors adore such dramatic doubling because it shows a major mishap in the die preparation process and makes the coin extremely scarce. Another possibility lies in off-center strikes where the coin design is not properly aligned with the planchet during the strike, causing part of the design to be missing and a large blank crescent of metal to appear. The more dramatic the off-center, especially if it retains a full date and mint mark, the higher the value. So a 2002p nickel with, say, a 70% off-center strike and full visible 2002p date would be a dream find and easily command sky-high prices. There is also the chance of broad strike errors where the coin is struck without the collar holding it in place, causing the coin to spread wider and thinner than usual, making it a visibly unusual piece that collectors prize. And then we must talk about the ever-fascinating planchet errors. Sometimes coins are struck on the wrong planchet altogether. Imagine a 2002p nickel accidentally struck on a dime planchet, or even more amazingly on a copper cent planchet. Such wild mismatches can and do happen in the minting process. And when they do, the resulting coins become legendary rarities worth fortunes. In some instances, a nickel could even be struck on a foreign coin planchet, since the U.S. Mint sometimes produced coins for other countries, creating another layer of rarity and intrigue. The 2002p nickel also has potential for clipped planchet errors where a curved portion of the metal blank is missing before striking, leaving a crescent-shaped clip in the finished coin. Dramatic multiple clips increase desirability. Even further, another major error that elevates value is the mule error, an extremely rare event where two dies not intended to be paired are accidentally used together. So if a 2002p nickel were struck with the obverse of a Jefferson nickel, but the reverse of a different denomination like a dime or quarter, it would be a sensational and unique coin that no collector could resist. Let's not forget about die breaks and cuts. These occur when the die itself cracks or a piece breaks off, leaving a raised blob of metal or missing portion in the design. Coins with huge dramatic cuts are highly collectible, and if found on a 2002p nickel would make it immensely valuable. Some errors could involve missing design details due to filled dies where grease or debris clogged the die, causing parts of the inscriptions or Jefferson's features to be weak or absent. These missing letters or partial designs are treasured by error coin enthusiasts. Another rare scenario is multiple strike errors where the coin is struck more than once either in or out of the collar, creating overlapping or rotated designs. Such spectacular errors are almost always valuable, and on a modern nickel could easily push into the $1 million range if dramatic enough. But what truly fuels the $6 million valuation is not just the error itself, but the combination of rarity, demand, condition, and historical significance. Imagine a one-of-a-kind 2002p nickel with a major multiple strike error, off-metal planchet, and strong doubling, preserved in pristine condition and authenticated by top grading services. Collectors would battle fiercely to own it, pushing its price to unimaginable levels. The coin market is driven by passion, competition, and the chase for uniqueness, and in this case a perfect storm of mistakes could result in a value of $6 million. The 2002p nickel also carries a modern allure because many people do not expect such recent coins to carry astronomical value. So, when an error of such magnitude appears, it captures headlines, excites new collectors, and draws media attention, which further drives up demand. Think about how many nickels you have handled in daily life and how easily such a fortune could slip through unnoticed. This is what makes the hobby of coin collecting so captivating, the thrill of possibly finding a life-changing piece in your pocket change. When we talk about what makes the 2002p nickel with errors so valuable, we must also consider condition. Coins that are uncirculated, with mint luster intact, graded at MS67 or higher by PCGS or NGC, are in a class of their own. Combine that condition with a jaw-dropping mint error, and you have the recipe for record-breaking auction results. History has shown us countless examples of modern coins with dramatic errors selling for 6 or 7 figures. And the 2002p nickel is no exception. It represents the possibility of human mistakes in a mechanized process, each error telling a story about how even in highly controlled minting environments accidents happen and those accidents become treasures. Another interesting factor is that nickels are struck from a copper-nickel alloy and errors involving wrong compositions could exist. For example, a 2002p nickel struck on a pure copper planchet or struck on a leftover wartime silver alloy planchet could be worth millions due to its extreme rarity. Collectors chase not only the visible striking errors, but also the metallurgical mysteries. Every coin is a tiny historical artifact, and when something unusual happens during production, it captures the imagination. Think about die rotation errors too, where the obverse and reverse do not line up correctly, sometimes rotated 90 or even 180 degrees. These errors are dramatic, easily visible, and very collectible. A perfectly centered rotation of 180 degrees is particularly prized. If found on a 2002p nickel, it could skyrocket its value. Sometimes coins also feature design mismatches known as hub doubling or misaligned dies. All these nuances add layers of collectability, and when you add together dramatic doubling, off-metal strikes, multiple strikes, and extraordinary condition, you end up with a coin worth millions. So why exactly $6 million? The reason lies in supply and demand. A truly unique 2002p nickel with a jaw-dropping error is one of one, meaning only one exists in the world. Wealthy collectors love owning one-of-a-kind rarities because it gives them prestige, bragging rights, and the security of owning something irreplaceable. At auction, these coins ignite bidding wars where millionaires compete fiercely, pushing values to staggering levels. $6 million for such a coin is not just about the metal or the face value, but about the history, the story, the uniqueness, and the desire to own something that no one else can. And this is why the 2002p nickel with extreme errors has reached legendary status. When you look closer at the Philadelphia Mint's production history, you realize that billions of nickels have been struck, but only a handful with major errors survive, because most are caught and destroyed. This rarity is what makes survivors so valuable. Imagine holding a coin that escaped the mint with multiple mistakes, traveled through circulation unnoticed, and now stands as a multi-million-dollar rarity. It is truly like winning the lottery. Collectors dream about such finds, and stories of them inspire new generations of numismatists. The fascination with error coins is not just about value, but also about understanding the minting process, how dies are created, how planchets are prepared, and how high-speed presses strike thousands of coins per minute. In that complex dance of machinery, any small slip can create an error, and when it is dramatic and escapes detection, it becomes a treasure. Next, 2012 D5 Cent USA coin. We uncover one of the most jaw-dropping and unbelievable stories from the world of coins and hidden treasures. Because what if I told you that a simple-looking nickel struck in the year 2012 at the Denver Mint, a coin you may have handled without a second thought, a coin that millions of people might have exchanged in everyday transactions for just 5 cents, could actually be worth a staggering $5 million because of its rare and extraordinary errors and minting mistakes? Yes, you heard that right. A coin with a face value of only 5 cents suddenly elevated to multi-million-dollar status. And in this story, we are going to explore in incredible detail why a 2012 D5 cent coin could command such an astronomical price, what kinds of errors could have transformed it from pocket change to fortune, how these mistakes happen inside the United States Mint, why collectors fight fiercely to own these unique pieces, and why the single coin stands as a perfect example of how rarity, history, and chance collide to create value beyond imagination. So let's begin by painting a picture of the 2012 5-cent piece, also known as the Jefferson nickel, bearing the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his historic home, on the reverse. A coin design familiar to millions of Americans, struck by the billions every year for circulation. Yet within that ocean of ordinary nickels could be hiding a handful of extraordinary outliers, coins that slipped through quality control and into the world carrying errors so dramatic that collectors would one day pay millions to own them. So what exactly could make a 2012 D nickel worth $5 million? Well, first let's look at double die errors, one of the most famous and beloved categories of mistakes in numismatics, where the die itself was improperly hubbed, creating a doubled image that is then transferred to every coin it strikes. Imagine a 2012 D nickel where the words "I in God we trust" or "Liberty" are clearly doubled, or Jefferson's profile shows dramatic doubling visible to the naked eye. Such a feature alone could propel the coin's value into the thousands or even tens of thousands. Now add to that the possibility of an off-center strike, where the design is misaligned and only part of Jefferson's head is visible while the other portion of the planchet remains blank. And suddenly we are looking at a coin that stands out dramatically from the rest. Now imagine if that same coin was struck on the wrong planchet altogether, perhaps on a planchet meant for a foreign coin, a dime, or even a cent. Wrong planchet errors are among the most fascinating because they represent something that should not exist at all, and yet every so often they slip through the minting process and into circulation, making them instant rarities. Then we have broad strikes where the retaining collar fails and the coin spreads outward with no rim, creating a stretched and unusual appearance. Or we have die breaks and cuts where pieces of the die itself chip away, leaving raised blobs of metal or large missing sections on the finished coin. Or even multiple strikes where a coin is struck twice or three times by the press, leaving overlapping images. Now any of these mistakes on a 2012 D nickel would already add incredible value. But the kind of coin that could reach $5 million is not just any error coin. It would have to be something so dramatic, so unique, and so impossible that collectors recognize it as a once-in-a-lifetime find. Picture a 2012 D nickel struck multiple times off-center on the wrong planchet with clear doubling on Jefferson's portrait and a massive die crack running across Monticello on the reverse. A Frankenstein error coin that should statistically never have left the mint yet somehow did. And in the uniqueness lies the value, because collectors are not just buying a piece of metal. They are buying a story, a miracle of chance, and a piece of history that cannot be replicated. And this is why auction houses would feature such a coin in special events, why collectors would line up to place million-dollar bids, and why headlines would be made when a humble 5-cent coin sells for $5 million. Now let's dive deeper into how such errors could happen in the first place. The mint produces coins at staggering speeds with high-pressure presses that strike planchets hundreds of times per minute. Any small misalignment, mistaken the die preparation, or contamination in the blanks can result in unexpected outcomes. Sometimes dies clash without a planchet between them, creating clash marks that later show up on coins. Sometimes planchets meant for other denominations or even other countries get mixed into the hoppers. Sometimes striking pressure is off, resulting in weak strikes or partial designs. And while most of these errors are caught by quality control, every so often a few slip through and escape into the world, and when they do, they become treasures. Imagine someone in 2012 spending this nickel unknowingly at a gas station or grocery store, the coin then traveling through hands, pockets, and cash registers, until years later an eagle-eyed collector notices something unusual. Perhaps the weight is slightly off or the strike looks odd. They examine it closer, send it for authentication to a grading company like PCGS or NGC. And when the coin is returned in a sealed holder labeled with multiple major errors, its fate is sealed as one of the greatest error coins of modern times. Now, why would collectors pay $5 million for such a coin? Well, rarity is the key. And when we talk about rarity, we do not just mean a coin that is 1 in 1,000 or even 1 in 1,000,000. We mean one of a kind, a coin that literally no other example exists of. And when collectors, especially high-end investors with deep pockets, see a chance to own something truly unique, they are willing to pay astronomical sums. It is the same reason a rare piece of art sells for hundreds of millions. It is about ownership of the impossible, the bragging rights, the historical importance, and the investment potential, and coins like the 2012 B5 cent worth 5 million become symbols of that. They represent how the smallest and most ordinary objects of daily life can, through a twist of fate, become extraordinary treasures. And it is not just about the money, it is about the thrill, the dream, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, you too could find one in your change, because hidden in those jars of nickels, in the rolls from banks, or in circulation itself might be the next million or multi-million-dollar coin waiting to be discovered. And that is what keeps the world of coin collecting alive, that constant chase for the rare, the unusual, the impossible. So when we hear of a 2012 D nickel selling for $5 million, it is not a random fluke, it is the culmination of rarity, dramatic error, historical context, and passionate collectors colliding to create value beyond imagination. And let's not forget condition plays a major role too. If the coin survived not only with its errors, but also in pristine mint state condition, untouched by circulation, gleaming as if it just left the presses, then its value multiplies. Collectors always chase perfection, and when perfection is combined with error and rarity, the sky is the limit. So imagine a coin with multiple dramatic errors in flawless condition, authenticated and certified as unique. Such a piece would be irresistible to high-end collectors, and could easily reach or even exceed $5 million at auction. And that is why the 2012 D5 cent coin stands out as one of the most fascinating stories in modern coinage. A reminder that fortune sometimes hides in plain sight, and that even a humble nickel can change lives. So next time you hold a 2012 nickel in your hand, take a closer look, check the date, the min mark, the strike, the weight, and every detail, because you never know, you might just be holding the next multi-million-dollar treasure. And that is the magic of coin collecting, where history, rarity, mistakes, and luck come together to create legends that will be told for generations. Next, 1996 D5 cent USA coin. A place where everyday pocket change can suddenly become life-changing treasure. And today we are going to uncover the unbelievable story of the 1996 D5 cent coin, the Jefferson nickel minted in Denver that in extremely rare circumstances has been valued at an astounding $2 million. Not because of its face value, which is only 5 cents, but because of the extraordinary minting errors, unusual mistakes, and striking anomalies that can transform a common coin into something extraordinary and priceless in the eyes of collectors and investors. So let's dive straight into the story of why a coin minted in 1996, a modern era where billions of coins were mass-produced with advanced technology, could still yield a rarity so special that it would one day command a multi-million-dollar price tag at auction. And we start by setting the scene at the Denver Mint in 1996, where millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels were being struck for circulation. A coin that had already been in production for decades, featuring the portrait of President Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his Virginia home, on the reverse, designed by Felix Schlag. And by the 1990s this design was already iconic, instantly recognizable, and firmly entrenched in American coinage history. Yet within those massive minting operations there is always room for imperfection. And imperfection in numismatics can be worth a fortune, because what collectors treasure most is rarity, uniqueness, and the unrepeatable quirks of the minting process. Now what makes the 1996 D nickel capable of reaching values as high as $2 million is the wide range of potential errors and anomalies that can occur during production, each of which turns an otherwise ordinary coin into something truly spectacular. So let's explore these errors in detail, starting with one of the most famous and desirable types, the double die. This happens when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned during hubbing and ends up impressing the design onto the die twice, slightly offset, leading to a coin that shows doubled inscriptions or features. And if a 1996 D nickel exists with clear doubling on words like, "In God we trust, Liberty," or the date itself, then collectors would clamor to own it, especially if the doubling was bold and visible to the naked eye, because doubled dies are among the most dramatic and sought-after errors in all of numismatics. Another potential error that could elevate this coin is a repunched mint mark, though by the 1990s mint marks were machine-applied rather than hand-punched. Anomalies in the process could still result in a distorted or doubled D mint mark on the obverse, and subtle as these might be, they are deeply appealing to specialists who hunt down varieties that link directly to the minting process. Then we move to off-center strikes. One of the most striking errors a collector can encounter, where the coin blank is not properly centered in the press and ends up with the design shifted dramatically to one side, sometimes leaving Jefferson's portrait partially missing or Monticello cut off. These kinds of visual oddities are instantly noticeable and extremely collectible, especially when the date and mint mark remain intact, making them identifiable yet dramatically unusual. Now let's not forget about broad strikes, which happen when the retaining collar fails and the coin spreads outward during striking, creating a larger and thinner coin that still carries the basic design, but in an odd and eye-catching way. Such coins are often one of a kind because the conditions that create them are so rare. Another error type that excites collectors is the die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, causing parts of each design to be impressed onto the other die and later transferred to coins, leading to ghost-like images of Monticello on the obverse or Jefferson's profile faintly visible on the reverse. These clash marks are fascinating and collectors love them for their dramatic and almost eerie appearance. Then there are die cracks and cuts, where the dies themselves fracture or break under pressure, leaving raised lines, extra lumps of metal, or even large blank areas on the coin, and these errors are completely unique to the individual die, meaning no two are exactly alike, which boosts their rarity and desirability. Next, we have struck through errors, where debris, grease, or even foreign objects get caught between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving strange impressions or missing details on the coin. These errors are particularly interesting because they often produce wild and unpredictable shapes that make each coin literally one of a kind. Another incredible error possibility that could make a 1996 D nickel worth $2 million is the wrong planchet strike, where the nickel is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination such as a dime, penny, or quarter, or even on a foreign coin blank. These errors are exceedingly rare and immediately noticeable because the weight, diameter, or metal composition does not match that of a normal nickel. Imagine a 1996 D Jefferson nickel struck on a copper penny blank. It would appear reddish in color and weigh less than it should, instantly standing out as a minting mistake of monumental importance. And coins like these are often unique or known in only a handful of examples, making them worth staggering sums. Now, while errors themselves are the primary drivers of value, condition cannot be ignored, because a rare error in poor condition might be interesting but will not fetch nearly as much as the same error in pristine mint state condition. So when we talk about a 1996 D nickel reaching a value of $2 million, we are envisioning a coin that not only carries a dramatic, verifiable error, but also has been preserved in extraordinary condition, perhaps graded by a professional grading service at MS67 or MS68, meaning it shows virtually no wear, sharp strikes, and clean surfaces. That combination of rarity and condition is what pushes coins into the multimillion-dollar range, and this is why the story of the 1996 D nickel is so fascinating, because it shows us that even coins struck in recent decades can harbor treasures of unimaginable worth. Furthermore, we must remember that value in the coin market is also driven by demand, and collectors are passionate, competitive, and often wealthy individuals who are willing to spend huge amounts to secure something unique for their collections. When a coin like a rare 1996 D era nickel comes to auction, the bidding wars can be fierce. pushing prices to levels that astonish outsiders, but to collectors it makes perfect sense. Because owning a unique piece of history that no one else has is priceless. And when you add in the symbolic weight of the Jefferson nickel, a coin that represents both American history and continuity, the appeal grows even stronger. Also, let's not forget the historical context of 1996, a year that marked the midpoint of a decade of change in American coinage, technology, and culture, and a coin from this period with a dramatic era carries not just monetary value, but historical symbolism as well, showing that even in the modern era, the mint is not immune to producing fascinating mistakes. Now picture the thrill of discovery. Someone searching through a handful of nickels, or perhaps opening a bankroll in search of something interesting and suddenly spotting an anomaly, a doubled inscription, an oddly off-center portrait, a coin that feels lighter or heavier than it should, or even a reddish-colored nickel struck on the wrong blank, and realizing that they are holding a $2 million treasure. That is the magic of numismatics. The possibility that at any moment an ordinary person could stumble upon extraordinary wealth in their pocket change, and that is why collectors never tire of the hunt, because the next legendary discovery is always just one coin away. So as we reflect on the 1996 5-cent coin and its potential to be worth $2 million, we see that its value is not an accident, but the result of a perfect storm of factors: rarity, error, condition, demand, and history, all converging to create something truly special. And it reminds us that coins are more than just money. They are little pieces of art, history, and chance, and sometimes they become miracles of value because of the very mistakes that were never meant to happen. So keep your eyes open, keep searching your change, and never underestimate the power of a small coin to change your life forever, because the world of rare coins is full of surprises, and the next $2 million nickel might just be waiting in your pocket right now. Last 1997 5-cent USA coin. The most fascinating deep dive into the thrilling world of rare and valuable coins, where the smallest details, minting blunders, and unexpected mistakes transform everyday change into incredible treasures worth fortunes. And today's story is about a coin that many people overlook without a second thought, yet in its rarest era forms it has stunned collectors by reaching values as high as $3 million. And that is none other than the 1997 Jefferson nickel, the 5-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint, a coin that at first glance looks completely ordinary with Thomas Jefferson's familiar portrait on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse. But beneath that seemingly ordinary surface lies a world of errors and possibilities that elevate this humble nickel into the realm of multi-million-dollar collectibles. And to understand why a 1997 5-cent coin can command such a massive price, we must look carefully at the minting process, the categories of errors that can occur, and the specific circumstances in which these mistakes become extraordinary rarities that collectors are willing to pay life-changing sums to obtain. So let us begin by setting the stage in 1997, when the Denver Mint was producing millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels with great speed and efficiency. Yet even with the modern minting technology of the late 20th century, mistakes were inevitable because of the sheer scale of production, and those mistakes, rare as they were, became golden opportunities for collectors decades later. And one of the most famous categories of errors that affect the 1997 nickel are double die strikes, where design elements such as Jefferson's eye, nose, or mouth on the obverse, or the letters of Monticello and 5 cents on the reverse show clear signs of doubling due to misaligned hubbing of the dies. And dramatic doubled dies are always highly desirable because they can be seen without magnification and immediately set the coin apart as something special. And when found in high grade with strong luster, a double die 1997 nickel can easily climb into the thousands. But when combined with other factors like pristine condition, rarity, or uniqueness, it becomes a coin worth millions. And then there are off-center strikes where the blank planchet fails to align perfectly under the dies, and the result is a coin with the design shifted dramatically to one side, leaving blank crescent-shaped areas on the coin surface. And if the date and mint mark remain visible, such off-center errors become extremely valuable because they are both dramatic and identifiable, and collectors love coins that are not only rare, but also visually striking. But beyond off-center strikes, we must also consider broad strikes and partial collar errors, where the retaining collar that normally holds the coin in place malfunctions, causing the coin to spread out beyond its normal dimensions, creating unusual-looking pieces that can be worth thousands. And still more fascinating are wrong planchet errors, which occur when a coin is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination. And in the case of the 1997 D nickel, there are known examples of coins struck on set planchets, making them lighter, smaller, and copper-colored rather than nickel-colored. And such errors instantly become highly prized rarities, because they combine the impossibility of a mismatched blank with the novelty of an unusual appearance. And then there are transitional errors, where a coin is struck on a planchet from a different year's composition. And though nickels did not undergo major composition changes in 1997, the possibility of leftover blanks or experimental planchets cannot be ruled out, which adds to the intrigue. And perhaps the most jaw-dropping possibilities are multiple strike errors, where a coin is struck more than once and shows overlapping or rotated images, creating an almost surreal appearance that makes collectors go wild. And when such an error occurs on a modern nickel with clear dates and mint marks, it becomes a one-of-a-kind piece that auction houses know will command astronomical sums. And then we must not overlook die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring faint outlines of Monticello onto Jefferson's face, or Jefferson's portrait onto the reverse. And such dramatic die clashes can transform an ordinary coin into a collector's marvel. And another exciting category are struck-through errors, where foreign material like grease, wire, or fabric gets between the die and the planchet, leaving strange indentations, missing design areas, or unique patterns on the coin. And because each struck-through error is unique, they can attract intense competition among collectors who want one-of-a-kind examples. And so when we consider all of these possible error categories together, we can imagine the scenario where a 1997 D nickel combines multiple dramatic mistakes, such as being struck on the wrong planchet, with off-center strike, with doubling on Monticello, and in pristine mint state condition. And such a coin would without doubt be unique in the world. And it is this uniqueness that drives the value into the millions, because collectors know that once such a coin is sold, it may never appear again in the marketplace. And condition is another absolutely crucial factor in value determination, because a coin that has circulated heavily and shows wear will not attract the same premium as a coin that remains in gem uncirculated condition with full mint luster and no distracting marks. And professional grading services like PCGS and NGC certify these coins, ensuring authenticity and assigning grades that add confidence to buyers. And when a dramatic 1997 D nickel error is certified at MS67 or higher, it instantly becomes a blue-chip rarity in the numismatic world. And this is how we arrive at the incredible valuation of $3 million, because rarity, demand, visual appeal, uniqueness, and condition all intersect to create a coin that transcends its 5-cent face value and becomes a legendary artifact. And what makes this story even more exciting is that the 1997 D nickel is not some ancient or obscure coin. It is a modern coin that could still be found in circulation or hiding in a change jar, a drawer, or a forgotten box of coins. And that possibility that an ordinary person could stumble upon a life-changing treasure is what makes these stories so captivating, fueling the passion of collectors and inspiring people everywhere to start looking at their coins more carefully. And the Jefferson nickel series itself has always been rich with varieties and errors, from the overmint marks of earlier decades to the wartime silver compositions of the 1940s, to the repunched mint marks and doubled dies scattered throughout its long history. So it is no surprise that 1997 would also yield its share of surprises. And when we reflect on the idea of a $3 million nickel, we are reminded that the hobby of coin collecting is not only about money but about history, chance, and discovery, because each era coin tells a story about the minting process, about the era in which it was made, and about the incredible journey that brought it into the hands of collectors. And so the tale of the 1997 5-cent coin worth $3 million will continue to inspire fascination, treasure hunts, and dreams of discovery for generations to come, reminding us all that sometimes the most valuable things are hidden in the most ordinary places, and that every coin we encounter has the potential to hold secrets that could change our lives forever.